Welcome to Link's Crafts. Today I'm going to be making some buildings from a steampunk city. I'm going to start with this canvas base. Using my marker, I can mark out where the street and buildings will go. After my last craft, I realized the importance of planning, so first, I'll make a quick reference sketch. I don't really know why I thought this was the best way to hold the paper while cutting, but it worked, I guess. Anyways, after marking out where the different buildings or houses will go, I can decide to use these little figures for my scale. I decided to go with the smallest one. And if we take a little trip over here, you can see that in this drawer I keep my lights, including these street lights, which I plan to use for this project. I tried not to add too many details to the sketch, that way there was a bit of wiggle room. So, in case I mess up, which I probably will, I can just say that was my original plan. With the sketch done, I can start to craft. For the streets and walls, I'm going to cut out some foam board. I can then take it upon myself to carve out every individual brick for the street. With the bricks done, I can give them a bit of texture with a foil ball. I can then use my knife to add scratches and make the street look more worn. With the street done, I can begin to build the shell of the first house. For its foundation, I'll carve in some smaller bricks. I can then mark out the windows and door. A strip of craft foam can act as the trim, separating the first and second floors. Coming from the second floor, this little piece will be attached with a balcony. To add some variation to the flat walls, I carved out the corner to make it look like parts of the wall have fallen to reveal the brick skeleton beneath. With the frame of the second story somewhat done, we can start to work on the third. It wouldn't be a steampunk house without a clock tower, so I'm making one now. I cut out these pieces of foam to help both support the roof and the clock tower. With the third story glued in place, I can begin to add bricks to the second. I can then glue in a foam board frame for the clock tower's roof. With that, we got a pretty close shape to the original sketch. Now, to move on to the second building. Similar to the first, this building starts as 4 walls made of foam board. For some detail, I can cut and glue in these strips of balsa wood for the trim and frame. Because I also can't imagine a steampunk house without an observatory, this one will be made out of foam board and the roll of a paper towel. I have a somewhat wonky L that happens to fit right here. The observatory's tower can get patched up with several metal plates made of paperboard. Right here, I'll add a little maintenance shed which can get covered in balsa wood planks and have a little door. With a tiny drop of glue, I can begin to add all the planks. I didn't have any good dome shapes, but I did have this piece, which should work just as well. After cutting a slit, I can begin to make the telescope. The telescope is made from a bunch of beads that I happened to piece together. After gluing it in place, I can add some little steampunkish details around it. What's a wooden shed without a roof of shingles? So let's add them. I'm flipping up a few at random to add some variation. And since I love tediously carving things into foam, let's carve some cobblestones here. Since this top will be accessible by people, let's add some railing. I'm gluing in some beams of balsa wood before adding a craft foam railing. And with that, I've got pretty much the general shapes of both buildings. Time to add the details, starting back with the first. I'm layering on pieces of craft foam to add both the staircase and the porch. And I'd love to tell you what's happening in this shot, but my hand's covering the frame. Oh, window frames, that's what we're making. These can be cut out of paperboard before being glued in place. Some corrugated cardboard can be added as the metal roof. I flipped some pieces over to act as panels that had been used as patch jobs. Even though you won't see much of the back, I still wanted to have some details, so let's add some metal pipes. I can then begin to cover the clock tower in greeblies. This square of paperboard can act as the frame and be glued in afterward. And while I'd love to show the process of making the clock face, I instead decided that was a better idea to record 10 minutes of myself working off camera. Also missed a bit of myself adding the shingles for the clock tower, though luckily most of the time I was working in frame. With that done, I can start to add details everywhere. I wanted it to look like everything was intentional and had a purpose, instead of being messily improvised the way I'm doing it now. For a lot of the pipes, I enjoyed using bits of sprue from model kits. I can now add the balcony I mentioned several minutes ago. At this point, I decided it was best to start making the windows. I had this somewhat opaque plastic that after a layer or two would allow the light through, without showing the inside of the buildings. I have some of these exhaust pipe thingies from the Titanic model kit that I decided to use for this project. If anyone knows the proper term for these smokestacks, let me know in the comments down below. With all this complex machinery, I should probably add a trapdoor so the people inside can get out to work on it. I have some of these really interesting looking sprues from a Gundam model kit and figured I'd try using one of them here. I can then continue to add greeblies. At this point, tragedy struck, and I was finally out of hot glue sticks. So unfortunately I had to stop crafting and wait till the next day to get some more. I got a few packs, and the next day I could continue crafting. I thought it would be smart to use craft foam to cover the holes for the batteries, but it ended up not working out. After wiring up all the LEDs, I can make sure they work before continue crafting. I decided I didn't want this window here anymore, so I boarded it up. To add a bit more detail, I added this little tube here. And with that, the crafting is done, and the painting can begin. I'm going to start by priming everything with a mix of Mod Podge and black paint. Once everything is dried, I can start by painting the street. I'm using several different shades of gray before coating it in a brown wash. This adds a layer of detail and makes the street appear worn and weathered. After it's been messily applied, I can dab it away with a paper towel. With the street done, we can start to work on the second building. I'm base coating the whole thing in khaki before coming back with a lighter cream white. Here's before, and here's after. The higher part of this building gets painted with a dark graphite. For the cobbled roof, I'm applying a brown-gray mix. I'll then mix together some lighter and darker grays before painting some random stones. With some variation added, I can move on to the wood bits of this building, which get painted several woody colors. I can then remove the tape covering the windows. Before painting the muntins, a light gray. With that done, I can start to add color to all the mechanical details. Gears get dry brushed silver, bronze, and gold, with the pipes getting similar colors. The observatory tower will get painted a bright white. After a few layers, it's looking pretty good. The trim is painted dark graphite, and all the panels are painted bronze, silver, and gold. The wood shed can get a base coat of dark brown before getting several lighter shades of dry brushing. The door gets a dark gray, and the shingles get an orangish brown mix. All the gears and pipes get bronze, silver, and gold as well. The observatory's dome gets several layers of tan. Add a bit of detail and texture, I'll stipple on some lighter shades. With one building down, I can move on to the first. Or, I guess the second one now. I don't really know. For the foundation's bricks, I mixed together some oranges, grays, reds, and browns. They're definitely a bit bright, but I'll tone them down with some washes later. For the first floor, I'm mixing together a bit of light gray and brownish gray. For the trim, a darker shade of tan gets brushed on. I didn't really know what to do with the roof, and since it looked like corrugated metal, I decided to dry brush on some silver. If I ended up not liking it, I could always repaint it and pretend the silver underneath was for shading. After base coating the second floor in a darker red, I can select some choice bricks before adding some color to them. With the bricks added, I can move on to painting the clock tower. It gets painted a bluish gray before getting a light gray dry brushing. The little overhang balcony area gets painted white. And for those painting, always make sure you know which side the paint is on your brush. I can then paint all the wood to make the wood look like wood. Contrast the white, I'm painting the door frame a dark gray. I wanted to try something new, so I took some oranges and browns to add a bit of rust to the roof. I decided that this roof was probably purple before most of the paint had chipped away, so I tried mimicking that with some darker shades. The metal plates get painted white and gray, and the wires get painted red and blue. The clock tower shingles can get several worn and weathered shades of brown. The clock face can then get a coating of previously used metal colors. While it looks like I'm not painting anything, I can assure you that I am. I use mostly brown washes, though I did mix together a gray one for the bricks on the second floor. After mostly applying, I can dab away this magic soup and reveal how it can make even my subpar painting look decent, if not pretty good. For these stones in the street, however, I used a dark black wash. And here's a little tip, I always like to drop my projects whenever I'm working on them, that way they actually look damaged and weathered. With the final wash added, I can begin to glue everything in place. I can also glue in some clump foliage to add some color and variation. Here's a little trash can made from a dollhouse soda can. For some extra detail, I tore apart a cotton ball to act as smoke for the smokestacks. And with that, we're done. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing. The music in the background was by Scott Buckley, link in the description. If you have a future craft idea, leave a comment down below. I might run a poll soon after this video releases with some ideas, but I'd love to get suggestions. This craft was actually inspired by a comment, and I'll make sure to shout them out in the description. Until next time, I'll see you later.